Hello everyone, I'm the Maple from the Technical Service Centers. Today's my presentation is about the introduction of the trackers. So, with the continuous increase in energy demand and environmental awareness, solar as a clean and renewable form of energy is increasingly widely used, and PV trackers are an important component of the solar power generation system. In order for everyone to have a better understanding of the PV trackers, I will introduce them in three aspects: overview of the tracker, different type of the trackers, and product hierarchy of the mainstream manufacturers. The overview I also separate to the 3 points: the concept of the trackers, the tracker suppliers, and structure. So, what is the PV trackers? In a simple words, it is a device that can track the movement of the sun and continually adjust the angle of the solar panels to maximum the energy collection. In the renewable energy industry, PV tracker has become a very important tool because they can improve the efficiencies of the solar power generation. For the principle of the tracking system, generally speaking, the trackers has an industrial system to detect the power generation. When there is a change in power generation, the trackers will adjust its tracker angle to maintain the optimized power generation angles. At the same time, the trackers will also use the local database to determine the position of the sun at different times, thereby correcting the relative algorithm is very important. So this is the ranking of the global tracker shipment in 2021. Currently, the top 10 manufacturers are the X Trackers, PVH, STI, Soltec, GameChange, Architect, FTC, Axel, SolarScale. And the picture on the right side is the tracker shipment volume change for the top 10 suppliers. Except for ATI and Architect have some reduction, the rest is in the growth stage. Among these 10 manufacturers, these 5 companies are closely with the deep cooperation with us. Due to the 10 issues, this test description will not include in this presentation. And then I will introduce about the main structure of the tracker briefly. It is divided into the 7 parts. They are the top tube, tube connector, Purlin, power system, pole set, post, and control box. For the tracker, the top tube plays an important role. It is responsible for supporting and rotating the PV module. Through the top tube and transmission device, the power generated by the module is transmitted to the module, thereby achieving the perception and angle adjustment of the module. At the same time, the top tube supports the purlin and connect post. Top tube are generally divided by the shape. It's the 3 types, like the circle, square, and polygon. Below is the 3 top 10 supply the product. The first one is the pentagon top tube of the Sky Smart tube. The excellent bending and the torsion resistance can increase the span of the post for this product, thereby reducing the number of the posts. Second one is the circle top tube of the Horizon XTR. The shape of the top tube is the point to deformation based on this hierarchy. XTR can be installed in area with the high undulation terrain. The final one is the square top tube of SF7, which is the most common top tube. Due to the transportation and the package issue, the length of the top tube is generally limited. So there may be several the top tube on the trackers. Therefore, the top connector is also very important. Its function is to connect the different top tube, and the different manufacturers will decide according to the shape of the product. The post is supporting structures in the PV trackers, playing a role in fixing the trackers. It supports the up structure of the tracker by being fixed on the ground or the foundations, while maintains the stabilities and reliabilities of the whole trackers. The common tabs are divided into the X-type, H-type, and C-type post. According to the function, they are separated to the dry post and simple post. The C-type post is easy to manufacture. The suppliers always will purchase the steel materials and manufacture by themselves, which has an advantage in the price. For the H-type post, it to be welded, so it is slightly higher price. However, under the same thickness, H-type post has a better performance on the bending and torsion resistance. It is not easy to deformation during the ramming. Therefore, H-type post is generally the perform choose in the studio project, which local soil is hard. The post has a web and flag plans, and the connector are generally installed in the flag. The function of the post set is connect the torque tube and post. Similar according to the type of the post, is divided into the drive post set and simple post set. Different manufacturers will decide according to the shape of the post and the torque tube. The power system is used to rotate the torque tube and ensure that the components are at the optimal power generation angle. There are usually two types of the through drive and the linear actuator. The through drive has the larger rotate angles and the lower requirement for the terrain, so most of the companies will use the through drive. The control box is used to receive the signal from the communication box and transmit instruction to the power system, thereby protecting the tracker and increasing power generation. Each tracker manufacturer will adjust their design and the position of the control box based on their own project. For example, the ATI and PB and the Sortex, they are installed on the torque tube, and PBH they are installed on the post. Purlin, which is used to connect the torque tube and the module. It is also the component that affect the pressures on the models. Normal Purlin tab is omega tab, and is following the figure show the manufacturing installation method. For example, for this one is from the Sortex install the manual, and their bolt is used. This fastener is used bolt, and they are used the bolt to install the Purlin and torque tube. So, what are the factors that affect the load capacities of the models? The first one is the mechanical performance of the Purlin, such as the thickness, material, and shape. This part should be considered by tracker supplier. The second one is the installation method, generally including the mounting system and fastener tab. If these factors are not properly decided, the model will destroy. For example, when the purlin length is not enough, that model will break. Also, if the fastener stretch is not enough, the model will fall down. Normal, there are three types of the mounting hole for each kind of the models. The length of the purlin determines the touch area of the model, and the larger of the touch area, the smaller the force on the model. So, under high wind pressures situation, increasing the purlin length is a good solution. There are two general types of the fastener. One is the bolt, and the other one is the rivet. The connector methods of the bolt is relatively simple, which is fixed by the screw and the nuts. And the connection methods of the rivet is the deformed and expanded due to stress, thereby achieving the function of the fixation. Below is the videos of the installation of the rivet to make you can better understand it. So, What are the advantage and disadvantage of each two type of the fastener? Since the rivets are generally made of the aluminum and the stainless steels, their anti-corrosion effect is relatively good. However, due to the material of the rivet, its strength is generally weak. Meanwhile, the rivets deform during the installation, so it will be destroyed after disassembly. The advantage of the bolt is that it is very easy to install and disassemble, and there are different types of the stretch bolts to choose from. However, the anti-corrosion method of the bolt are generally by galvanizing. Due to the process issues, the thickness of the galvanizing cannot be too thick. So, in high corrosion environment, bolts cannot meet the anti-corrosion requirement. The following is the Purlin design of the several top tube manufacturers. This is their standard Purlins from the architect, and their standard fastener is both, and there's the installation method. Their reinforcement method is to add a brass like this, and it can increase the load capacity of the downforce. ATI standard Purlins are somewhat unique, and the models are installed by clamp. The reinforcement methods adopt the longer purlins and bolts instead of the clamps. Sawtech purlins are similar to the architect, but the difference is that it is enhanced its load capacity by increased the number of the bolts. The purlin of the PVH is the most simple one. Their standard also is omega tap, and the only method they increase the capacity of the model is to increase the length of the purlin. The last one is neck tracker, which the regular fastener are reversed, and there are two ways to increase the pressure bending method. The first one is to add a supplemental roll, and the second one is to add bumpers. And based on the design situation, this bumper can be increased to maximum of the two. Of introduction of the basic concept of the tracker, let's talk about the type of the trackers. I divide them in following the three types. The first type is the 1P and 3P trackers. The 1P trackers is the single row vertical solar trackers. This is their example. And for the 2P tracker, they are double row vertical single solar trackers. And this is the installation sample. The 1P tracker is generally around 100 meters and requires 11 to 40 posts, while the 2P trackers is 17 meters with 9 to 10 posts. So the 1P trackers is required around 116 posts per megawatt, while 2P trackers only require 140 posts. Compared to the 1P trackers and 2P trackers, the 2P trackers has around 48% fuel post. At the same time, since the 2P trackers length is less than 1P tracker, so it can adopt higher undulation. And like I mentioned before, there are two road models in the 2P trackers. So under the same design conditions, the height of the 2P trackers is generally much greater than the 1P trackers. The design of the 2P trackers is around the 2.3 meters, which is not very inconvenient for the installation workers. To summarize, the 1P trackers, its price is cheaper, but it requires more poles. It is easy to install, but it cannot adopt a higher undulation. For the 2P trackers, the price is a little bit expensive, but it only needs a little installation post. It's very difficult to install, but it can adapt to the high undulation. The second type is the single drive and the multi-drive tracker. Single drive tracker uses a motor to drive the entire top tube to rotate, while the multi-driver uses a motor and a through drive to drive the top tube to rotate. The transmission shaft is used to transmit the torsion force of the motor to the rotation. Compared to these two kinds of the tracker, multi-driver trackers release additional component, which is a transmission shaft and through drive. For a better understanding, I will briefly explain this key component. The drive post is equipped with the model and a through drive. The through drive and the model are fixed and locked to the top tube, and the top tube is rotated by the model, through drive and transmission shaft. For the simple post, the top of this kind of the post usually have the plastic bearing in the middle, and there is no connection between top tube and this plastic bearing, which allow the top tube to rotate freely within the bearing. And the transmission shaft is between the different drive posts to distribute the torque generated by the model to the through drive, achieving the multi-point driving. What is the significance of the multi-post driver? As I mentioned earlier, the through drive and motor are completely locked with the top tube, so they can be considered as a fixed point. In this case, the free length of the multi-drive will be much lower than the single drive. From this formula, you can see when this free length is decreased and the frequency of the structures will increase. And when the frequency increase, and it will increase the critical wind speed. And what is the critical wind speed? This is the max wind speed that trackers will not go to the instabilities. That means the critical wind speed is higher than you can achieve the higher power generation. To summarize, the multi-point driver is more expensive, but it can adapt a higher wind speed project. Single driver is cheaper and more cost-effective in lower wind speed project. The last type is the single row and the dual row. Single row is that each trackers operate independently, and dual row is that driving two trackers by transmission shaft. So the dual row trackers can reduce the price of the control box and motor. Due to the dual row being two trackers as a whole, the rotation trackers angle of the two trackers will remain same, which will result in one of the tracker have the pull angle and affect the power generation. At the same time, in project with the large east-west slope, the number of the tracker will decrease and the layout design will be very difficult. So the single row design is more flexible than the dual row design. To summarize, for the single row trackers, the power and control system are more expensive. How they can achieve the higher power generation and more flexible design. For the dual row trackers, the power and control system are cheaper. However, they achieve the lower power generation and more design elimination. After understanding the basic concept of the tracker, let me introduce several tracker types from the manufacturer briefly. Due to the time issues, I only will introduce about these 5 companies which have the deep cooperation with us. They are Next Tracker, Soltech, Architect, ATI, and PVH. For the Next Trackers, they have the 3 products. For the first one is NX Horizon. They are 1P trackers, single row with a single drive. And several years, they have the upgrade product which called NX Horizon XTR. The tracker type is almost same with the NX Horizon, but different is these top tubes can deform large, which means they can suitable higher slope project. And the final one is NX Gen Minis. This is the 2P trackers and single row with the multi-driver. For the Soltech, they also have the 3 products. SF7 is the 2P tracker, single row with the single drive. And for the upgrade product, SF8 also is 2P tracker, single row, but different is it instead single drive to the multi-driver. And for the last one is SF1. It is 1P tracker, however is the dual row with the single drive design. For the Architect, they have the 4 products. The first type is Skyline, which is also is 1P single row and slow drive. And for the Skyline 2, they update the driver from single drive to the multi-drive. And this is the Sky Wings. This is also is 1P trackers, but however they have the created a new design is about the dual row and with the multi-driver. The Sky Smart 2 is the 2P trackers and the single row with the multi-drive. For the ATI, they only have the one kind of the project. It's called Advanced Dura Tracker, and it is the 1P trackers dual row with the single drive. And for the last one, the PVH, you have the 2 kind of the tracker. The first one is X1 Dual. It's 1P dual row with the single drive. And the second one is Monolith Plus. It can suitable for the 1P and the 2P. And also is the single drive and with the single row. So that's all about the tracker introduction. So if anyone have the more additional questions, please feel free to contact with me. Below is my email address. So thank you again.